Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, and for all notifications, don't forget to hit the bell icon as well. And for those of you that are coming back to the channel, welcome back. It's been about a year since we were at this location here at Old Oak Common in London, and we're here to look at the progress that's been made on High Speed 2 of the new interchange railway station here. Now, to help us understand what we're looking at, I've also included the plans. The yellow lines on the map are the existing lines out of Paddington out towards Reading. The blue boxes you can see will be the new platforms, which will allow passengers to interchange between the classic lines in yellow and the new high-speed lines in green. The red lines you can see are the link from High Speed 2 to High Speed 1 if it goes ahead. Although the government is not actively pursuing this part of the project, passive provision is being left in the plan just in case. The big mash of orange lines and the orange rectangle above, that is the new Elizabeth Line depot, which is already completed and is now in use. To the south of the current main running lines, you can see the big blue building. This is the North Pole depot, and is currently run by Hitachi in partnership with Great Western Railways to service their Class 800 units. To the north of the main running lines, you can see a series of cranes lined up from right to left on this video, which gives away the alignment for High Speed 2, as we can see where it will be running where the construction is taking place. A little bit later on, we'll be flying over the construction area and having a look inside the new concrete carcass, where the running lines will actually be. Flying forwards now, we can see a huge conveyor belt system. This conveyor belt system is used to take away all of the excavated soil and is actually linked up to the West Coast main line, where there's a freight loading terminal where the soil is deposited and is then loaded up onto the awaiting freight trains to be taken away and used elsewhere. In the top left of this shot, we can also see that there's another conveyor belt that branches off of the main system to another excavation site. This shows the westbound alignment of High Speed 2 and is where the tunnel boring machines have been used to make the tunnels further west underneath suburban London. We can see here, getting a closer look at that vast conveyor belt system, just how extensive this project actually is. To the top left of this image, we can also see some of the tunnel boring equipment, and we'll be having a closer look at that later. Moving around, we can see the conveyor belt system heading further north up towards the West Coast main line, and we'll have a look up there later too. But for now, we're going to have a look into the carcasses at Old Oak Common to see exactly what work has gone on. Looking down this way, we can see the alignment Euston bound on High Speed 2 as well. Looking down now, we can see where the conveyor belt system begins, and they're loading up from the dumper trucks the soil onto the conveyor belt system itself. Do notice that all of the cranes are logoed with High Speed 2 as well. And just entering shot now is one of those Class 800s that we talked about earlier heading westbound. In this area of the shot, it becomes particularly obvious that the Regent's Canal has played a significant role in the design in this area of High Speed 2 and Old Oak Common. And specifically, we can see here that the water level is much, much higher than High Speed 2 will be. And so extra precautions have had to have been made to make sure Old Oak Common is watertight. Now looking down, we can see just how much deeper High Speed 2 is compared to the Regent's Canal. Just entering shot now on the left is one of the Elizabeth line services, which are indeed now running the entire length of the line. In the last video we had, they were only terminating at High Level in Paddington. In the top left of our shot now, we can see a dumper truck is just unloading its soil. The soil is then put on the conveyor belt by the excavator. Slowly but surely they're getting through all of the soil, one excavator's bucket load at a time. And here comes another dumper truck about to unload as well. It's a very well oiled machine, this. I think we should get a closer look. Let's see just how this all works. It's impressive to see just how continuous this process is, and that the conveyor belt hopper is always full, and there's always another dumper truck coming to deposit its load. And again, as I noted earlier, we're going to have a look at the other end where the conveyor belt ends. We will do that later on in the video. Now let's have a look up that conveyor belt system. So the conveyor belt lifts the soil up and drops it out below onto another conveyor belt to change direction. Otherwise all we could have is one big long belt, and that wouldn't be any good because it would be in a straight line, and that doesn't quite work in London, does it? And here we go again, another conveyor belt transferring below to the next conveyor belt, and then bringing it on up out of the site. Let's have a look inside this bit, see if there's anything more interesting we can see. Again we have excavators digging out the soil, this orange one specifically with an extra long attachment to do so. I've never seen one of those before, so it's quite interesting to see. In between High Speed 2 and the classic lines, we can see there's more works going on. This is in preparation for the new station building and interchange facilities that will be built here. As we pan left, you can see the West Coast main line out in the distance. The conveyor belt system is taking the soil out from Old Oak Common up to the West Coast main line to the new freight terminal. The junction you see is called Willesden Junction, and this is where the North London line intersects the West Coast main line. And down below us now is the new Elizabeth line depot. This footage was taken around 8 in the morning, so unfortunately it was at peak time, so most of the trains are out. But this does give us a chance to see the colossal amount of track, where the outside tracks total 33 lines, and the indoor maintenance area has 9 additional lines. And yes, I have just sat here counting them all. If you remember earlier in the video, I was talking about the tunnel boring section, where I could see the tunnel boring machines and some extra excavated parts for high speed 2. This is that section. Again, we can see areas where soil is being loaded up onto a conveyor belt to be taken away off of that branch conveyor belt onto the main system. And again, another one of those excavators with the long attachment to reach right down into the hole. Panning left, we get a good look down into the excavation, and we can see they've actually concrete lined most of this area, and most of the concrete support structure is already in. This is where a pair of tunnel boring machines will be taking tunnels out underneath suburban London out to the countryside. Again, you can see a London Underground service at the top right hand side of the picture. This is the Central line, and the station closest is North Acton. Here we can see the conveyor belt branch linking up to the main system and taking off the excavations to the left. We're also looking back up towards the main excavation site at Old Oak Common as well. As the conveyor belt system passes over public roads, extra precautions have been taken to make sure there are no spillages onto the public areas by covering it completely. With the connectivity that is promised by Old Oak Common, brand new development sites are springing up all over the place in this area. As we can see now on the left of the picture, this is a new development site for commercial building. High Speed 2 is generating a lot of extra economic activity. Looking off into the distance, we can see where the conveyor belt takes the excavations. This is the freight terminal that's being used to take all of the soil away. We'll get even closer later. Now we're going to reposition our drone and get a good look down the excavations and see what's going on down there. On the right hand side of the excavation there appears to be a team meeting. There are lots of workers in orange here gathered together. The crane at the top of this image we can see has just loaded a container full of soil, and this appears to be getting ready to go into the excavation. And here's the beginning of the conveyor belt off of the branch for this section of the excavation. It looks like most of the soil has already been taken from this site. However, the tunnel boring machines are working, so most likely there will be some more soil coming through later. And now for a close-up end to end, we'll see what we can see down the excavation, see what's going on. Again, we can see all of the counterweight ends on the cranes are labelled high speed too. And looking down this excavation, we can see a borehole for the new tunnels. I'm glad we've seen these. It's good to preserve this for the future generation to see exactly what was done. Now zooming in, we can see there's a dumper truck down there as well. So the tunnel must go through to the main site. Otherwise there'd be no point in having a dumper truck down there. And then if we start to pan out and up towards the country end of the development, we can see after Old Oak Common we're going straight underneath the graveyard. Interesting. Also looking up, we can see the junction on the central line, where it goes either left to Ealing Broadway or right to West Ruislip. And now we take in a broader view of the local area. In the immediate area we can see most of the business' local warehousing. Old Oak Common and High Speed 2 is expected to bring a lot of regeneration in this area, and this area will be completely transformed by the time Old Oak Common is open. And right now, if we focus in on that crane we was looking at earlier, we can see they're actually putting down that container full of soil. Interesting to see that some is going back in. It seems there's a whole team there ready to intercept it as well. Carefully does it. Now I'm going to zoom in and take in this area of excavation all in one go from end to end. We'll have a close up, see what's about. If any High Speed 2 workers are seeing this, if you spot yourself, do let us know down in the comments. That concludes our look of this area of Old Oak Common. Now we're going to have a look at the West Coast Main Line and see where the freight terminal is and how that works, how they're taking away all of the excavated soil. In the video you see now, this is the conveyor belt from Old Oak Common, the main one, coming in all the way up to the West Coast Main Line. We're going to follow that up until we get to this end, where the freight depot is. We can see there's a lot of material being transferred by this conveyor belt because of the dust that's being kicked up from the transfer from the conveyor belts coming into the site to the ones that are taking it across the site. And here we can see where the conveyor belt is dumping all of that soil. It appears larger rocks are coming out on the right and the finer stuff's coming out on the left. And at this end they have a pair of excavators which are moving the soil to the track side, where two more different types of excavators are loading it onto the wagons themselves on the trains. As we can see, it's quite the operation with an incredible amount of wagons expecting to be filled. We're just going to get a bit more height so we can fly a bit further in and have a look down and see what else can be seen overhead. On the head of the middle set of wagons, we can see a Class 08 shunter that's being used to marshal the wagons up and down in the yard, so the wagons can be loaded sequentially. On the left we can also see a Southern Electric multiple unit operating a service, which is just about to come off of the West Coast Main Line and go on to the West London line instead, with a service down to East Croydon. Along with what we can just about see is a pair of 350 units from West Midlands trains going into Euston. Now panning around, we're going to go back over the site and see what's available to see this way. Again, we can see all the ends of the conveyor belts of all the excavated material coming in. And the conveyor belt transfer area as well. Again, we can see a canal here, but there is no underground railway at this point, so it's not so much of an issue. And looking on, we can see where the freight terminal connects to the West Coast Main Line to take all of the excavations away. And looking up in the far distance, we can see the Stonebridge Park train depot, along with the London Intercity depot there as well for the West Coast Main Line. The more dome-shaped building you can see in the far distance on the railway is the Princess Royal Distribution Centre. That's the Royal Mail Distribution Centre that has the Class 325 trains, taking parcels and letters all over the country. Looking below, we can see a London Overground rail service, taking a train off of the North London line onto the West Coast Main Line itself. Another point of interest we can see coming into the top of the shot right now is the Willesden Junction bus depot, which used to be a part of the Willesden train maintenance depot, and still has signs the railway once was there, from all of the spurs which no longer go into the site. But that's really the end of this video. If you've kept watching this far, thank you very much for keeping with us. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, the like button, and I'll see you next time. But for now I'm going to leave you some shots of the Willesden area of the works in progress. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.